Rise before the sun, it's that time of year. Load up my gun, put on my gear.
Welcome back to the Healthy Hunters Show. I'm Dr. Brooks Tiller, and today I've got a guest who is rooted in strength, probably from birth. He grew up with a barbell in hand. He's made many barbells, and he's made a lot of equipment that's helped a lot of people get strong and healthy, including our military, the guys on the front forces, the front lines that are helping keep us safe. He has helped them stay healthy and strong so that we can stay safe. He's a 4-time Division I All-American track and field, hammer, 35-pound weight throw, Southeastern Conference Champion. So this guy knows what he's doing when it comes to the weight room and being strong and being an athlete. He's a record holder in the weight throw and also an Olympic trials athlete. Like I said, his company is a big supporter of the military. He is a father. He is a husband. He's just all-around good guy who's not afraid to get out in the woods, get his hands dirty, or be in the shop and get his hands dirty making things. He is the founder of SORINEX Outdoors, and he's the president and co-owner of SORINEX Exercise Equipment. It is my pleasure to welcome the one and only Bert Sorin to the show. Thanks, Bert, for coming on.
Thanks, Doctor. I appreciate you having me, man. That's quite the intro.
But well, it's much due, and I'll be honest, your name has probably been mentioned 3 or 4 times in previous podcasts, and I knew that I just had to get you on, and even one significant one, if people want to go back and listen to the last question that I always ask when I asked Brandon Lilly about it, he mentioned you several times throughout the show, but whenever he got to that last question, I mean, he started getting choked up, teared up, because talking about how big an impact you were on him.
Wow. Brandon's an amazing guy, an amazing story. And I love that he's using his gift, and he has a lot of gifts, but that he's using them for good and using them to inspire people and to mentor people. He's a fantastic guy.
Yeah, he was awesome. And we got into a lot of different stuff on that podcast, but
I bet.
yeah. Well, for you right now, just tell me what's going good in your world.
Man, a lot of stuff is going good. I've kind of, a lot of stuff is going bad in the world in general. And, kind of when everything first kicked off from I hate to say a pandemic, not to make it all political or whatever, but kind of the realization was we're going to, within my top brass at SORINEX and in my family, we just kind of agreed, like, we're going to participate in the craziness as little as possible, to every extent. We're not going to get in arguments. We're not going to go nuts. We're not going to be run on fear. We're going to kind of keep our lives going in the same direction, the same trajectory and velocity as best we can. And it's been beneficial. And so from that side, a lot of my life has gone really, really well. And I think that's what I tell people is, control what you could control. And even if everyone's like, oh man, it's going crazy. It's this, all these people are doing all this to each other. I say, well, how about this? Go outside, walk over to your neighbor's house, say hello. Or if there's people out on the streets, smile, say hello, start a conversation. And you'll realize that life is way better than you think it is. And we're all extremely blessed to be in this position. So instead of focusing on the negative that it seems like most of the world is doing right now, I've just chosen I'm not going to do it. I'm not playing that game. I'll choose to just not play that game. And because of it, my life has actually been really rad for years, but the last 6 months has been great. I mean, I hate watching the news because it just is a whole different deal. So I stopped doing it. And so I've just realized, again, you keep your nose to the grindstone and keep your eyes focused on positive things, and life keeps getting positive. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I can tell just through even social media and things that you're doing. I mean, a lot of companies are trying to, you might say, capitalize on the fear and that kind of thing. And I love just even before all this, SORINEX was all about, and you especially, even personally, like I can tell, it's just all that, it's like your family and the health and the outdoors and just being positive and being upbeat and encouraging. And it's funny, the two guys that are a part of your SORINEX company, Brandon Lilly and Dan McKim, they've been on here, and you talk about upbeat, positive guys. I mean, and I think that's one thing that SORINEX, because of people like you, Brandon, and Dan, just the people that may have listened to podcasts, know that those kind of people are in there, and you're around those people, and that's going to just uplift everybody.
You're exactly right. You know, the people you hang around with and that are your mentors and you're in your group matter so much. And people that get tied up in the fear or tied up in the hatred or tied up in the heavy opinions one way or another and ostracized, like, I just don't interact with them. I thankfully, I'm at a point in my life where I don't have to do that anymore. And that was a goal. And guys like Brandon, guys like Dan, I spend as much time with as I can. I have a group of other individuals that we're, you know, kind of back channel. We all support one another and have those real candid and curious conversations that, you know, work things out without any type of judgment. And those are the people I lean into and invest into in my life. I hate to say the other people I just kind of stay away from. And so, yeah, those two are just absolutely huge. I mean, Brandon is one of the best redemption stories of anyone I know. And then Dan McKim is one of those guys. It's like, I say to people all the time, and of course it makes him, you know, blush and whatever, because Dan's so humble. I was like, if the world was a bunch of Dan McKims, we wouldn't have problems.
No.
Like, I mean, Dan McKim does life right. If you want to know how to do it like Dan, you know. And there's a few people in my life, I'm like, man, you just, you know, no one's perfect, but intent and humility and work ethic and like all those things are just in that man. And it's like, he's a friend, and, you know, he works for me per se, but like, I'd certainly look up to him as just someone who does life right. And instead of focusing on people that do life wrong and commenting on it all the time, just focus on the people that are doing right. Focus on the people you want to be more like, and make sure you're adding value to their life so that you can have some interchange.
Man, I think we could just end it right there, and the world would be a better place, you know. You know, and you're exactly right. I've told a group of kids last night when I spoke to them that, you know, who you are today is just a result of yesterday. But if you don't like who you are today, you just get around better people and you do different things, and then tomorrow you are different, you're better. And I think that's something we get caught up in.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was telling someone that the other day. I said, you're 1 second away from being a different or better person. And it's literally just a choice, you know. And you look at, say, I mean, you know, like racism would be like a hot topic. There's racism out there. But here's the neat thing is, even if someone has that ignorance or whatever, they can change that and choose not to be that anymore. It doesn't mean that they're always have to be ignorant or you know, judgmental. You could literally change what's in your heart and your mind in 1 second and go on a path to be a different person. And that's where I don't like titles. I don't like, you say, oh, that person is so and so. They might be illustrating those characteristics right now, but what if they decide something else, a different belief system, whatever? They could be on a road to being a better person, and there's nothing standing between them and that decision. It's just that decision. And once that decision's made, or that education is made, then you can start healing and you start moving in the right direction. So that's why I always hate that, again, that people kind of look at this person as this, they put them in a category. It's like, okay, well, you know, that's one of the nice parts about free will. Everyone could change at any point. And if we can't change, then what the heck's the point in all of this attempting to get better? Because then it's a falsehood. There's no actual ability to get better if you can't ever change the scoreboard.
Yeah, I totally agree. And on that, you know, we discussed a little bit before we ever started recording, but I know that through what you're doing with, I mean, you have SORINEX, and then from that, you've kind of branched out and you have your SORINEX Outdoors. And I know through that, you're opening some eyes, if you will, to some people that may not know the outdoors. And
Right.
for me, I enjoy just taking someone for the first time
Oh,
hunting. And we're talking about, you know, the racism and things. And I was having a meeting with a mentor of mine, and he said, "Hey, I've got this guy I want you to take hunting." I'm like, "All right," you know, and I just said, "Okay." I said, "Let's do
of
it."
course.
And, you know, but then he starts, he's like, "Well, you know, he's like, well, he is actually, you know, he's a felon. He's a black guy." And like, he starts telling all these things. And I was like, "I already said yes. I don't care." You know, I was like, "Well, if he's a felon, then we'd probably do archery. We might not be able to do a
You're
gun."
right. And
But,
that's just a thing.
and
Yeah.
I was like, "But, you know," I was like, "But if you know, he's a guy that you're mentoring, and, you know, we're friends, like, let's take him." And because when we get in the outdoors, man, it's equal. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire, and it doesn't, I've hung out with people in the outdoors who have a lot more money than me. They're a lot smarter than me. But when you get out there in the woods and you're miles from civilization, like, it's a pretty level field there. And I know you've done the same thing. You've been out
Yes.
there with a lot of great people,
Yes.
from a lot that people would know that are famous or whatever, but
Sure.
you've been out there with them, and it doesn't matter how many followers and likes you have. You can't,
No.
you know, the elk doesn't care.
The bullet doesn't care, the elk doesn't care, and the snow doesn't care. Like that's again, I agree 100%. And I was telling someone else, that's probably why the two of the things I resonate with the most are human performance. So that many years that was weightlifting, because the bar doesn't care who you are, what your followers are, how, you know, anything. It doesn't care how long you've been working out. All it cares if can you put force greater than its gravity into it, or it's going to crush you. It doesn't care. And I love that. I love that there's no posturing, there's no lights, there's no filters, there's no angles, there's no BS that could happen that is going to save you from that object that just 500 pounds is 500 pounds, and it wants to kill you if you put it on your back. Secondly, nature. If it's cold and rainy, you're going to get cold and wet. Deal with it. There's no amount of money, no amount of pull, power, politics that could get you out of that. And so you need to be prepared. You need to be trained. You need to have the right gear. You need, and all of those things. So I love they're the ultimate testing ground, because there's no posturing. There's no fronting. There's no like, well, I don't want it to do that. Maybe I'll push this off my schedule. No, bro, it's 100 degrees, high humidity right now. You better mitigate that, or you're going to pass out. And I love that it is the ultimate equalizer. And white, black, rich, poor, right, left, it doesn't matter. When you get in those two circumstances, the only person that has a say is you. And then that's where I really look as freedom, and it's free will, and it's freedom, and it's also learning to deal with something that is outside of your control. You know, hurricanes coming up and you're in wherever, like, you better deal with it, and mama ain't coming to save you. And I love that, because it's the ultimate proving ground and testing ground. And it keeps me awake. It keeps me dialed in to have to be a better person, because I can't win this game.
Yeah. I mean, and I think I've read some stories, I heard some stories about you even growing up, and I'd like to dive into a little bit of how you grew up and how you got into the outdoors, and then we'll maybe get into how SORINEX Outdoors came about. But I've heard some stories about you, you know, your father taking you out and just like, hey, you know, here, go for the night, you know, but for me, my son is 5, and I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, I have taught him how to use flint and steel to make fire. And, you know, and seeing him do that, like, that's like a stepping stone of, hey, you know, like, you can now, he can shoot his little bow, he can shoot a crossbow, he can shoot a pellet gun. And I'm teaching these things as I can. And, you know, I was blessed to have a dad and a granddad who taught me these things.
Right.
And I know that you were kind of on that path too. You know, your dad taught you a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of people out there who don't know, don't have the skills, and haven't been taught these things. But I want you to share a little bit about your growing up, your outdoor experience, how you really got into the outdoors, and how that developed into SORINEX Outdoors.
Right. Well, yeah, my dad was a huge part of that. I was an only child, and so I didn't have like brothers and sisters to play with, like ball sports. And you know, my family was never really into ball sports. My dad was always a lifter, and he became a shot put discus guy. And so we didn't grow up throwing a football or a baseball with each other. Of course, I did that with some other kids in the neighborhood, but Pops was really smart, because he realized that even if I was really good at baseball, or let's say football, even if I was really good, I was only probably going to play until I was 18. And if I was really, really good, I was probably only going to play till I was 22. And if I was really, really, really good, I might play till I was 30. But the bottom line is, he realized that even if we play the football in the backyard, once I'm kind of like out of that, if that's what we do, that was what we did. And then it was, there's not a lot of 30 and 60-year-old men that go out in the yard and throw the football. It just, so there's a kind of a disconnection. And nothing against those that play football or baseball or anything, like, no, absolutely not. But for my dad and I, he wanted to cultivate an active role in our relationship together. So it was, since I could walk, it was taking me in the woods, and I was 2 years old, and he would take me fishing, and he was like, okay, Bert, daddy's lost. How do we get back? And that, just little things like that. Of course, I didn't know where I was, but to make me start paying attention where we were walking on the roads, and where, I'd point us the ways back, and, little things like that. Or I would go over to his house, and he'd have a climbing stand hooked up to a tree. This was mid 80s when the climbing stands were horrible. And actually, there were climbing stands made by my dad, and it'd be hooked on the tree, and there'd be a roll of ribbon, orange ribbon tape. And then I would go up as high as I could and tie a ribbon around the tree, because that would get me over being scared of heights. And then the next week I'd go back and try to beat that. And so you realize, like, you're always getting better, or you're getting worse. Like, I didn't do as well as I did last week. And it's not because of my skill set, it's because of my mindset. It's because I didn't have, I've been less afraid before, and that was last week. And even in a 7 or 8 year old kid, you're like, okay, I'm kind of being a sissy right now. I've already proven I could do it. And now, because it's just comforting, and of course you don't think to this level when you're a kid, but you later start unpacking it. You're like, oh, because it was hard or whatever, I didn't do it. I didn't go a foot higher. And then you're like, no, forget that. And after a while, it's like every week I'd go over, I'd want to get it higher and higher and higher. And those are the little competitive nature that he was putting in. And, we'd go hunting or fishing or whatever it was. And I remember, as a 6 or 7 year old kid, he seems somewhat negligent. I shouldn't say I was 6. I was probably 8. But we went hunting one day, and he gave me a 10-22, sat me on the side of the road in a brush pile. And he's like, if a deer comes by, shoot it in the eye. That was my instructions. Like, there was no someone sitting with me. There was no, he knew that if it was close, I could probably shoot in the eye. He's like, where the safety is, enjoy. And then he went off and did whatever he did, and came back an hour later. Well, I later found out he was never more than 100 yards away. He was watching me, and so those little things, and you're like, okay, well, those are stuff that he would do. Or there was an island called Little Goat Island on Lake Murray, and I was 10 years old. In December, I was all into the hunting and survival stuff, and so he would play this game, and we would have a scale, and he would have a bunch of survival gear and random stuff from the household laid out when I go over his place. And he goes, okay, you have 10 minutes, pick your 10 pounds, weigh it out. You can't have any more than 10 pounds, and that's what you got to camp with. And so then you start learning, like, well, this is a necessity. This is a convenience. Could be used for one thing. This could be used for 3 things. And I have to get the most I can, the bang for the buck, because it's going to matter in my, dissatisfaction of my experience if I pick the wrong thing. Right. And so those little things that we would do, like kind of mock runs first. So I didn't have to like stay outside over, and just freaking die because I brought, a remote control car or something. But eventually, kind of like the ending point was, camping in the backyard. And then eventually it was, he took me out to an island in December, and just so happened it stormed that night. And so I'm 10, I don't think I was quite 11, 10. And my younger brother was like 6. Well, he left us out on the island, like with about an 80-pound pit bull that was ours. And so nothing was going to happen to us. But we had to make a shelter out of a tarp, not a tent. Make a fire, cook, the whole 9. And he literally came back the next morning, and it was a freaking terrible night. It was one of those, like, started white capping out there. And so wind was blowing. It was really cold. Like he overreached a bit, let's be really honest. But the experience it gave me was, hey, stuff is going to suck sometimes. It's going to suck really bad. And then even a little kid, I realized I'm not going to die. All I have to do is hold on until daybreak. He'll be back. No use in crying about it. No use in whining. There were no cell phones. There was no anything. My little stepbrother was crying and doing this whole deal. And I remember going like, okay, I have to mitigate his action and his mindset to this. And I have to start being a leader. And even like 10 years old, and we started doing that. And he and I, my little stepbrother and I were laughing about this. And, of course I'm 43, he's like, whatever, 38, 39. And, people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe your dad did that. That was like, negligence. That was this and that and the other. And I laugh and I'm like, well, all right. I was basically last chosen for all athletic sports through high school, although I turned out to be a professional athlete. He barely made it out of high school and just sold his business for about $50 million. And I mean, and like he became a Marine and just kicked butt, and then it was like in a band, and then like took over his father's business and exploded. Like, and I'm like, wow, for two kids who were totally counted out as their youth, like maybe some of that hard stuff that we went through early on and both became very successful in our own ways. And I look back, I'm like, maybe more kids need to be left on an island and have to just deal with real stuff. And, I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, because my kids are like, my oldest, like 8 or 8.5. Like, I couldn't imagine leaving him on an island right now, which tells me that either I'm not putting enough stress induction in his development, or maybe I was a little ahead of the curve, one of the two. But it at least makes me think, like, am I making my son and all my kids' lives too cushy based on my success? And I try to induce and streamline a hardship, but the reality of it is, like, probably not doing a good enough job at it. So those are a little bit kind of like the origins of the outdoor world for me. And of course it became the normal hunting, fishing, everything like that. But it was a little bit of tough luck. Every kid wants to go out and fish and then of course you want to catch the fish, and then you want to keep the fish because you're like, daddy, let's keep it. He's like, sure. And, you're filling up these coolers full of catfish and it's awesome. And then you come back and it's 40 degrees and it's raining outside. And he's like, okay, you know how to clean the fish. I'm going inside making dinner. And you're like 8 years old and you're sitting outside like, I have this giant cooler of fish that I'm in charge of skinning these things and doing all this stuff. He's like, yeah, you said you wanted to keep them. That's the other part of this. And then my little brother sitting outside with me, he's crying and everything, like, why do we have to do this? And it was like, we decided to take these fish life. We jockeyed for that. And here's the part that goes with those decisions. And, and so throughout my life of that, and then Pop's very smartly kind of programming me to appreciate that and to appreciate the tail in your mind of like, I'm going after these wild things and doing these hard things. You get addicted to the process, right? So I'm 43, 35 years later, it's still how I choose to spend most of my time if I'm not working or being with my family. And now that I could incorporate my family into it. And so to kind of fast forward to SORINEX Outdoors we're very known in the strength and conditioning world, the human performance world. It's where we've made our bones, but I realized that the majority of what I'm doing off camera of that is doing outdoors. And I realized that so few people in the outdoor world really understand human performance, although human performance is a wildly effective tool for them to achieve their success. And then conversely, the people in the human performance world, whether they didn't have a father or a parent that taught them about the outdoor world, or a lot of people in the human performance and sporting world came from the urban or suburban areas that just didn't have access to that rural lifestyle, they're missing out this something awesome, not only for a subsistence style living if they ever want to go that way if things get really rough, but they're just ill prepared. So the idea was, if we could take these people that have this high value and these people that have this high value in both places that SORINEX has a footprint, let's put them together and introduce these two groups, and we could literally make new outdoors enthusiasts and hunters and fishermen and people that are conservationists to take care of the outdoors that have a voice and a power. And then those people that want to chase these outdoor pursuits can be better armed to do it through actual science and practice versus just kind of bro lifting. So that's kind of the idea of SORINEX Outdoors, and a lot of stories other built in.
No, I love it. And, for me, the whole healthy hunter idea concept came about from the same thing is I was thinking, I had a patient as a physical therapist, had a patient who reminded me of my granddad. And about the same time, I went to a fitness conference, and the guy was talking about finding your niche. And I was always thinking, oh, I gotta, I've got to be like all these, the big physical therapist or the big streets, I got to be the big strength and conditioning guys. But instead, I realized I was like, if I could work with one person, it would be my granddad. I lost my granddad when I was a senior in high school. And I thought, I was like, if I could have him for like 3 or 4 more years, how much better of a man would I be? A better outdoorsman, a better father, a better husband. Like I would be so much better just overall. And I was like, but I don't have that, but I can do that for one other. If I can do that for one other kid, that's all that matters. You can have one more fishing trip or one more hunting trip with your dad or granddad, then I'm all in. And so that's kind of where it all developed. And like you're talking about, it's one of those that you don't realize what you have until it's gone. And you can mix that health and fitness side with the outdoor side. And I mean, you're in South Carolina, I'm in Tennessee. And now if you look at where our license comes from and general population, it's the Southeast is the majority of our hunters, but it's also the majority of our, you might call it the metabolic disease and the poor health comes from the Southeast. And it's not because we don't have the good food or we don't have access to things. It's, a lot of it is, it's just maybe a lack of knowledge or a lack of caring or whatever it may be. And for me, I just wanted to encourage people, just get out and move, go play with your kids, go get out, just go outside for 30 minutes with your kids and just run around. Like it doesn't have to be, a hard, you and I would probably enjoy a hard deadlifting session, or we got Dead December and Squat-tober coming up and all that things. But they may not enjoy that, but just get outside and play with your kids, and your kids are going to enjoy that. They're going to open up to you and just have that fun time. And for me, it's just about like you said, mixing the fitness and the outdoors with those people that need it. And you're going to enjoy the outdoors more, and we can share it with new people.
Right.
That for me, that's what it's all about.
We are 100%. And like you said, in the South, we have such a, heart disease, diabetes, things like that. And a lot of that is cultural, just food sources and activity. And so what I really appreciate the Western hunters is generally they're extremely healthy. Because you have to be, you're covering ground. I mean, we have more hunters and fishermen, and theirs are usually in some ways a little bit, they're much more fit generally. But even I talk about, I said, these guys have the fitness side of it, and they're great hunters. I said, but these guys down here got the reps. I mean, you got to remember, in the woods, like from say Tennessee, I know South Carolina is, I can hunt for 5 months for deer. You can get a lot of reps in woodmanship. So that's another thing you look at. You go, well, it's 2 different styles. It's 2 different strong points, strengths and weaknesses. Like, why aren't more of these people getting together? And then why aren't the people who understand human performance, like you said, changing the eating habits of those in the South? And those in the South say, well, hey, come on this hog hunt down in the swamp and do this. And so you're seeing all these. I've always been a transcendent guy. So like, whatever you could transcend into outside of what maybe the expectation is, that's what I consider true success. So if we could have, and you look at right now, like, Cameron Hanes is probably one of the best known hunters on the planet. And probably even if you really look at it, although not a professional hunter, Joe Rogan is the most famous hunter on the planet because he's one of the most famous people on the planet.
Right.
So I say he's one of the biggest advocates for our hunting lifestyle right now. And just so happens the 2 things he's really, really into are physical fitness and the outdoors. And so you see a proof of concept with him and John Dudley at Knock On and all these guys like that I look up to, and thankfully they're friends and mentors. You definitely see the proof of concept, and you see that when groups of people are led by gentlemen like that, and they're given the abilities to dial into both sides of it, you make better hunters and better fishermen, but you just make better people. And just, I want people that can live a long time, kind of like business. I want my business to be profitable and sustainable for a really long time. and as from a business side of it. And again, I look at that as life. I want my life profitable and sustainable, meaning I'm having an extraordinary experiences for as long as possible. I want to live young as long till I'm very old. And that's the life I've chosen, and that's what I've kind of chased after.
Yeah, and I totally agree because as a PT, I've worked in nursing homes, and it's so sad to see someone that maybe is my dad's age that is in a nursing home, but and it's not because maybe it's because of a health related thing that could be avoidable if they had the education and then just the know-it-all. And for me, every time I see that, it just likes to fire under me to educate more people and get more people. And like you said, just getting outside, getting outdoors, there's so many health benefits to that. The Japanese, they have that what they call the nature bathing, and they have all these places where you can just go walk through the woods. And even if you're in New York City, there is a park right in the middle that you can go take a walk, and like it's green. Just take a walk. Your blood pressure, its studies show your blood pressure decreases, your heart rate decreases, your stress level decreases, and all those things make you healthier. And make you fitter. And it's just amazing how you just, when you get outside, it's like that silence. I mean, the Bible talks about in the silence you actually hear. That's when you can hear God. And it's like, I was like, what? Like I can sit out here and I'm in a deer stand, I'm in the turkey woods, and even if I don't hear anything, I come home and my family realizes like I'm better, like I'm calmer. I'm not as apt to like get angry but if you send me to downtown Nashville for 30 minutes, like I'm gonna come home like, and my wife's like, all right, you need to go in the backyard and work out.
Same.
And so like it's that,
in Northeasterners, not I mean, because there's a lot of the big cities, they're pissed off for a reason. There's a whole bunch it's cold, it's overpopulated, everything's fast paced, and they come down here. A lot of my buddies, they're like, oh, so nice down here. I'm like, right, because we're not freaking out, and there's woods, and they're like, there's so many trees. And like, yeah, man, go. I tell my wife, and she knows it. I always consider it a great day if I see the sun come up and I see it go down and I'm outside. If it's a day that I could pull a double like that, a lot of the stuff in the middle of it's going to be pretty awesome. I'm going to be in the right frame of mind. I'm going to be relaxed. I'm going to be clear headed. And, you smell the woods in the morning, and you smell the dirt, and, you get some dew on your legs as you're walking, all the little things. And if I kill a deer, that's cool. But I mean, there's just so many things and as I get older, I appreciate every little step of it, because I realize there's one day I won't be able to do it. And to me, it's almost like, and sometimes just a frantic, how much life can I pack into this little bit of time I get to be on earth, because I don't know when that's going to end. Hopefully it's going to be a long time. I've made a lot of decisions that mathematically tell me it's probably going to be a long time, but I don't know. So my goal is to pack as much of it in. And then that's where the health side comes in. The health gives me the best chance to have a really long, young life. So.
Yeah. And I mean, most of us who have kids or grandkids, it's like you want to see them. And I mean, for me, I was older before I ever got married, before I had kids, and it's like I want to see them. I want to, if some kid comes knocking on the door to pick up my daughter for her first date when she's 32, like like I want to be like, all right, buddy, like I don't need all these I have a bunch of guns, but I don't need them to whip your tail, because I want to be healthy and fit to where like I can do that. And it's also that protective mode of I want to be able to protect my family. If somebody comes knocking at 2 a.m., like there are firearms in the house, but if some reason they get in before I get one, right? Like, can I take them out?
Yeah.
Physically.
And we're men for a reason. And the male species the male in every species was meant for, I think Brian Mickler talks about, provide, preside, and protect, and that's what we're supposed to do biologically. That's what we're supposed to do. If I'm going to be, am I an alpha male type? People say that, but I'm certainly the alpha male in my family. I'm the alpha male of my family. My job is to protect, provide, and preside over my family. That's my job. And if I don't do the right things, then I'm literally letting my family down. If an intruder comes in my house or tries to take one of my kids and I'm not able to protect them, I failed. If I'm not able to bring home the bacon, as they say, and in the old days, it would have been literally going and hunting and gathering and bringing things home for them to eat. And right now, I do that, but I also have a job where I get paid and then I trade that for food. And those are the things I need to be able to do. And those are high performance life skills. And that's exactly right. And I think so many people, they water down what our role as men are, and you miss it. You miss what we were biologically made to do. And women were biologically made to nurture and also protect. And like, they have a skill set that is different than what I have. My wife could do amazing, amazing things that I don't have the skill set for. I've seen them. Maybe I've done it one day, but she's brilliant at that. But there's things that I could do that she can't. Hence the merger and the marriage. And then, not to get into all that type of stuff, but it's been designed. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of mystery in it.
No. I mean, my life is gone for like 3 or 4 days, and I cannot tell you how many times after about 12 hours that she was gone, I was like, I am not mama. Like, I didn't lay the clothes out right. I didn't wash the hair right. I didn't brush the hair right. I didn't make the food. I did all these things that mama does. It's just, she knows exactly how the kids want them. I'm like, I'm not mama.
No,
Like, go pick out your own clothes. Like, I don't care if they match, like, I don't care if you change out your pajamas or not all day. We're just going to run outside and get muddy.
You must be married to the same woman that I am, because the same thing. Like, my wife took 2 of my kids, and then I had my youngest this morning, and he, of course, got up and they'd already left, and he was crying his face off. I want mom. And then I did what Bert knows how to do. Hey, you want to go put out a bag of corn and a camera? And he's like, okay. And I'm like, fix that one. And we literally put it in the backyard, but he thought it was great, my little 4-year-old. And then we came back and everything was cool until mom came home. And then, of course, I'd put on the wrong shirt and all of those things. And then he saw her and it went right back to, nurture mode. But I had kind of got him into the, hey, you're one of the boys mode. Like, let's go from there. And so I kind of laughed with her. I was like, it's almost like you got to reset after that mama phase. And I get it. That's who they truly are, what they're truly feeling. But that just proves that we all have jobs and we all have things that we need to do within the family unit.
I totally agree. And like I said, it's our job, maybe even, my wife, she'll go out and hunt with me sometimes, but she's not as into it as I am, of course. But
If we're on this podcast, most of our spouses wouldn't be into it as
probably. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. And that's fine. And, and we go out. I mean, I had them in my vows that my buddy did our wedding, and my old roommate, and he said, is it okay if Brooks brings home dead animals? And she agreed to it in our vows, and that's the old Cherokee. Whenever they got married, I have a buddy's doing some research, and he told me when they got married, the man would like take his new wife, like, this is my tent. You are welcome to stay here. I'm going to the woods. Like, soon as the wedding was over, and he went to the woods, and he would come home with a deer and present it at the door of the tent. And if she accepted the deer, then it was considered a legal binding marriage. But if she didn't accept the deer, then it was just like, all right, null and void, we're done. And
you're not about this life.
Yeah. It was one of those things I was like, man, he was like, I think you'd really like them. I was like, maybe I just need to move to move out in the middle of nowhere. Maybe I can convince my wife that we don't need electricity and roof over our head and all that stuff, but haven't got that far yet.
Yeah, no, that's probably a good. I mean, podcasts would be difficult without electricity. Yeah, you probably just gonna have to probably shut that one down. And I agree. Like, there's part of me that's like, man, this whole back to the Stone Age thing wouldn't be too bad. But I'll be honest, SORINEX would probably be gone if we did that. And
Yeah.
It just changes a lot. So I like how it's going. It's okay, but
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm not going to complain too much about it, but I'm just going to make
I
sure
feel like to get away and off the grid as much as possible.
yeah, just get away when you can. Yeah. And hey, I want to talk a little bit about, just to talk about a little bit SORINEX, because whenever we say that quote unquote the pandemic hit, you made a great pivot because a lot of your equipment is made for, I mean, you're in all the big time Olympic sites and military sites and professional athletes like that. That is kind of who comes to SORINEX. Is you are very custom. You're amazing, high quality gear, but you really pivoted and you came up with something that for, let's say, the everyday garage gym workout guy, like you had some stuff that was amazing. And I even saw that you even had it like posted to a tree, which for me, my backyard is our workout. I've got 2 4x4s in the concrete, and that's my squat rack, that it's my pull-up bar, and that's my salmon ladder, that's everything.
Works
And
great.
yeah, and but you came up with, y'all had something that was really impressive that somebody could just throw in their garage. It was really cool. And I mean, you talk a little bit about that and just how the innovative side of SORINEX comes out.
Yeah, I mean, thanks. Well, what we do at SORINEX, I mean, there's 2 different ways. We solve problems. We solutions, I want to say experts, we're trying to be, but we're good at solving problems. And problems for us could be, hey, I have this many athletes and I need to get them through my room and we need to decrease hamstring injuries. And then, so we would have either a tool or an application to assist that. But basically we solve problems. So one of the problems that arose was when the pandemic hit and everyone, I mean, weightlifting equipment globally sold out almost immediately. Everyone's lead time was jacked. And so I had, first all my kind of core customers that needed stuff were hitting us up. And then just every Tom, Dick, and Harry was like, hey, I need a rack. You have something scratch and dent. And of course, that stuff goes like that. And we were looking and we were having NFL teams, all these people reaching out like, I need 50 racks for our people, but we need them in 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, well, I need a gold donkey, but they don't make those. Like, it's just kind of, it's cool and everything. And I appreciate the support, but you're like, okay, that's not a thing. And so we started thinking, we're like, okay, well, we need to make a lighter, not say lighter duty, but a more simplistic rack that the average person can purchase. And so the problem became, how do you make something in America? Because that's what we do. For little money that the average person could purchase while they don't have a lot of money. They might not be working right now, but they're still prioritizing their health and strength. That we could build at the shop with as little hands on it as possible, because the more hands that you put on, the more it drives up the cost, the more it drives up the time. So I designed a rack, we called it off-grid rack, and it was done with our laser, done with our bender, and we said, okay, this is something we could run a second shift and just hammer these out and make sure people have them. So we designed it. I mean, I think the time we came up with the first drawing, we had a prototype made in 3 days. And then in 7 days later, we had probably 50 to 100 of them in stock, and we're selling them and marketing them, everything. Well, we thought that 50 or 100 would get the initial glut of orders out, and that was not the case. It grew quickly, which told us we did something well. But there was also a side of it. We said, okay, we want to have these out here. It was really to help people. I'm not trying to make a $350 rack. That's not my goal in life, is to make something, I say, cheap. It's to solve a problem. This problem was we needed racks for people to train, and they needed them fast. So we made a wartime field expedient style of rack, designed it from the ground up to something that falls into our manufacturing capabilities. And then we started thinking about, we said, well, I've never been one to create a product and try to create a buzz to make people pity buy or anything like that and to make money off of that. I just find that disingenuous. So we said, well, let's try to help out the world of what's going on. So we teamed up with Coaches Versus COVID, and they asked if we would, donate some money. And we said, how about this? We'll take all the profits from every one of these racks for a certain amount of time, and we'll give you all the money. And basically it was going to be Coaches giving money to people in the service industry, that, restaurants and bartenders and, waitresses and people that when all this closed down, they were sitting at home making no money. So we're able to donate that. And so I want to say in 14 days, we were able to donate 98,000 to something dollars. So I felt really good about that we were able to not only help the community with a actual viable weightlifting equipment solution quickly, made in the US, keeping jobs in the US, where my guys didn't have to be laid off. And then and we're able to give away a good bit of the cash. And, I mean, it sounds kind of stupid to give away almost 6 figures during a pandemic, but, I've generally found do the right thing, and the blessings will keep continuing, cup poureth over, as they say. And have to be honest, that's kind of how it happens.
Yeah. I mean, and when I first saw it, I was like, that's awesome. And it was really impressive. Like you said, it was, you can put it in your garage, you could put it on a tree somewhere if you had the space. But I mean, it was really, really cool the way that it happened, and the fact that you're helping other people with it was something I really appreciated. Because, my wife, we have an entertainment company, and we were booked up for the entire year. And then all of a sudden in March, it's like, oh, everybody called and canceled. So, I mean, I understood how they went. And, me as a PT, I still had some work, but it was one of those things where things changed really quick for everybody. And it was really cool that, y'all were able to help out. But,
well, the cool part was, I mean, it's, do we help out? I guess, but really the bottom line was, it was people helping people, because the money that, other people spent their money, and, just enough of it stayed here to actually, do the steel and the labor and everything. But so those are the people who gave the money. I mean, it was their money that helped those people. We were just happened to be the middleman that just kind of transferred it. And so that's why I like, it wasn't like, it was like, oh, great job, great job. I was like, okay, cool. What it tells me is that hundreds of thousands of dollars of people spent their money to get a good product. I appreciate that. But those dollars went to help their fellow man. And that was super cool.
Yeah. And I mean, I just appreciate the way that you were able to do it so quick, so people could continue to work out during the whole thing. Because, I mean, one of the biggest factors in staying healthy and fit and fighting off any kind of disease is being healthy and fit. And for that, I mean, people were able to stay fit and healthy. And I mean, if you don't have that outlet, like we talked about a while ago, especially in a crazy time like that, you
Right.
really could go, like, things could go south in a hurry, more south than they already have in areas.
I mean, yeah, physical fitness is huge, but mental and emotional, spiritual, all that stuff is so tied in. And that was kind of why the speed of the whole project had to be put into play. It was, we need to get people, maybe they could, they could be off of training for a week or two, but like, we need to get this back online and back going where people could resume some bit of normalcy. And, some people reached out and said, gosh, I'm in the best shape of my life. I have a lot more time to be at home. I built these other things. I've taken more walks. I've got more vitamin D outside. And, those are generally the people that you didn't hear anything really bad happening to them. And
Right.
I've argued that for years, again, not to try to be political, but when everything locked down, that's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I mean, I know everyone doesn't live in a place where they could go outside, and, so I'm not trying to cast that judgment from an ivory tower, but I think anyone who could go outside, get vitamin D, which is a huge part of your immune system, try to eat well, exercise, like those are things that you could do if you possibly can, and stay away from the alcohol. I know that was one of those things a lot of people were like, well, I'm gonna hang out and drink beer, and I got in, and it's like, you're just killing your immune system, man. Like, if you're really hiding from this disease, probably don't do that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a group of people that took it from a very mature, responsible, and effective manner. And it's good to see.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I appreciate everything y'all have done, and everything that you stand for and that SORINEX stands for. And I'm going to ask you two quick questions. One question, then we'll kind of get into where people find you, and then we'll wrap up. But maybe one tip on how to get our kids involved and bring other people into the outdoors, maybe through that fitness eye, kind of combine the fitness and the health aspect to the outdoors. Maybe people that are already in the gyms and try to get them out in the outdoors.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. Not one solution doesn't fit all. I mean, for my kids, it had to be they just saw me doing it a number of times, and like for instance, for them, the outdoor side, I had to gamify. I think that's really for anyone. You have to gamify it. You have to give some instant gratification that makes it a worthwhile, interesting endeavor, because it's really hard to tell someone, hey, I know you don't work out and I know you're not into fitness, but if you put this pack on and you walk like 30 miles in the next 5 days and you learn how to do this skill that you currently don't know how to do, maybe there's a 1% chance that you're going to kill a bull elk. It's going to be great. You'll love it. It's like, what? I've never experienced any fun things from this. You're going to make me work really hard, learn a whole new skill to have a super low success rate. This is a terrible idea. So I think that's where like if you're going to get them to hunting, it needs to start with something with a relatively high success rate. Like with my kids, it was literally getting little animals, little plastic animals that they already played with. I would set them in the yard 30 to 50 yards out. We would pick up binoculars. We'd sit on a high point, which is our porch. We would glass for these. They'd have to identify animals. They're doing this at 4 years old. And then they get to go stalk them. They get to run out and we would give prizes. Who could find the most animals, like gamification of it. So then they're working skills that's paying attention, knowing where I'd place the animals in edge scenarios and behind things. And so they're having to pick apart things, learning patience, learning not giving up on things, learning how to use a tool. And so that became a gamification of everything we were doing, much like my dad did with me. And so then you have to have those little dopamine hits of success. And I think that's the biggest thing from the outdoor world. There has to be success. And then from the exercise standpoint, I think you have to work it into something that's enjoyable, like a nature hike or like something you can't do the long form thing of it. I believe you have to do a hard and fast, get after it, because then someone has to go, gosh, I got a dopamine hit. And of course they're not thinking that, but there's this endorphin rush. I feel great. Yeah, I just kicked butt for the last 20 minutes. That was super fun. That was neat how we ran through the woods and did this and this and this. And we shot those BB guns and busted those clay targets out of the hanging in the trees. Man, that was really hard. My heart rate was going super high. That was badass. And so I believe the key to that is gamification, where then someone goes, let's run it again. I think I could do it better. And when you start doing that, you shift the motivation from extrinsic or exterior, where you're telling them what to do until they want to get better at that. And then there's just that intrinsic drive. They're like, I think I could run that course again. And now that I know it, I think I could do better. Cool, let's run it again. Well, now I've just tricked you into 40 minutes of exercise. And now you also want to get better at a skill set. So you score higher on this game and get some kind of prowess with it. That's how, that's the physical education side in me as well. Is just, I believe that's kind of the key to it. Otherwise, it's a hard kind of artistic-y muse to convince someone that this is a worthy thing to go and do it the hard way. It's too long. It's the finish line is too far away from their current position.
Yeah, I mean, here we do American Ninja Warrior courses and things like that all the time, and and it's one of those things where like, oh, let's do a ninja course, and it's obstacle course, and we're doing those. But for me, I think about it like you're tougher than life. So, life is tough, but just, if you're a little bit tougher than life, then you can make it and you can thrive in this crazy world. And you may not be able to phrase it that way, but like you said, you're doing those tough things and you're challenging yourself, and the kids are getting challenged or people are getting challenged. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really critical that we find a way to get a little bit tougher, whether it be mentally, physically, spiritually, like we're a little bit tougher. And I think that's real critical to emphasize that. But like you said, making it a game, go run for 45 minutes sounds terrible to me. Horrible. But hey, can I shoot my bow, sprint down, walk back, do an obstacle course, chase the kids? Like, I'll do that for 3 hours and never think, oh, I'm running, so that, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, that's actually what I did for my son's birthday party this year. We had a bunch of kids over. We took them to the farm, and we set up multiple obstacle courses that were physically demanding. And all the parents are like, that was the coolest birthday party we've ever been to. And we had fire starters were the party favors. And so kids they all had to flint and steel do it. And they're learning new skills. And then the fire we started is what we cooked the hot dogs on. And so like everything was tied together, where there was no free lunch. You didn't just show up and like, all right, well, let's see the clown. It's like, no, man, we're going to do this and this and this and this. And there's a skill set, and the people that are most skilled or learn this quicker are going to have a more fun experience, but it's okay for everyone. And that's why we do some of our events, and we scale them how we do, because all of it, we just want to get inclusion and people to try some new hard stuff. And we talk about it all the time, like, do hard stuff. That's how do you get tougher? How do you get more effective? Do hard stuff. And everything, a set of squats is meant to hurt. It's meant to be hard. That's why it works. And so once you start realizing that setbacks and stressors are your friend, that's actually how you get better. Then you just view them differently.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I appreciate everything you do. And I mean, everybody out there is listening can just follow along with SORINEX and follow you. But I want everybody, if you would, just give us a way that we can find you on the great interwebs and social media so that we can get that good information. Plus, we have Squattober and Deadcember coming up, which I'm looking forward to. I've got my shirt on the way.
Nice. Thank you. So yeah, you can reach me at, SORINEX.com is obviously our big site. We're doing a SORINEX Outdoors. We haven't built out all the content of that. But on Instagram and Facebook, you have SORINEX, SORINEX, or SORINEX Outdoors. Outdoors is obviously going to be a lot more outdoor related, hunting, fishing, and even other stuff like mountain biking, rock climbing, anything that has to do with being in the outdoors. I'm Bert Sorin. That's BERTSORIN. That's on IG, Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I don't really go to it too much. I try to limit the amount of platforms that I fool with. But that's kind of where you get a hold of me and kind of watch what I'm doing. I always try to post positive things. Even if I'm having a bad day, I'm not just going to go in there and bitch and complain about stuff. There's enough of that going on in the world. Everyone's like, you're always too positive. I'm like, no, it's just, I don't air out the negative. Like, that's not my job in life everyone has problems. Get over it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
And value to those around you.
Exactly. And if you're not adding value, then what's the point, right?
You need to go work on the back end of the shop if you're not adding value, in my opinion.
I agree. So the last question is one I like to ask everybody, and this is the one that Brandon got a little teared up, got a little choked up on when because he started talking about you. But I want to know if you have a dream hunt, and now this could be, you can go anywhere, you can hunt anything, you can use any weapon you want, you can take anybody with you that you want. So this is a dream. There's no limits, no rules, and it's all up to you. Where are you going? Who are you taking with you, and what are you going after?
Dream hunt would be a 3-generation Sorin hunt with my dad and my kids. And I'd love to go do something big in Alaska, whether it's rifle, bow, whatever. I certainly see there's a golden time, and it's shrinking, where as my dad gets older and it's trying to intersect with my kids getting old enough where we could all do this. And I realize it might only be a few years might never be where we all have this time where we could occupy the same space and time on these adventures. And so, I mean, that's part of one of my goals is to be able to do that, because I could believe that would be such a golden experience. And so hopefully that hunt hasn't happened yet and that adventure hasn't happened yet, but we're getting closer day by day. So that's kind of how I see it. And a couple of years ago, Andy Arabito with half face blades, he was a SEAL Team 5 guy that makes these really cool knives. And so
I think I've seen him on your Instagram and your socials and stuff.
Yeah, he makes some awesome knives. And so 5 years ago or so, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago. So he went right when he first started making knives. I purchased actually 4 knives from him. It was 4, right? Yeah, 4. And I got the Crow Scout model, and it was a half burled wood, half elk handle, and the kind of the whole thing. And that was when he was the guy that was like building each one by hand. Now he has a team of guys, and they do an amazing job. But I knew Andy would only be personally building them for so long because I knew he was a great business person. So I had him not only build those 4 knives that are matching, but they have his initials on them, AA. So those are the only knives he's ever put his initials on. but I also had each one of the Sorin males, my father, myself, and my two boys, all of our initials are on the knives, and they're all matching like a full set. And the goal was eventually we would all go on an adventure and we would all trade knives. And so my dad would carry his sons or his grandson, my grandson, everyone would either carry their brothers, their dads, or their granddad's knife or their son's knife. So the idea is someday there will all be apart, and then we'll always have something to hold on to each other with. We'll always be like on the adventure with each other. So that was the idea, right? And it was really cool. So I got Kodiak, my youngest son's knife, a week before he was born, and I actually got to cut his umbilical cord with his knife. And I rubbed
awesome.
his first drop of blood into the handle. And so like I was like, all of us have cool knives. Kodiak has an awesome knife because it was, I always thought Kodiak was an amazing name, but it was the biggest and most wild of the bears. It was the most wild country in Alaska, a place I'd never been. And so I was able, with Kodiak's knife, I took it with me to my first time in Alaska, and I dipped his knife in the water in Alaska. So it has Alaskan water and his first drops of DNA in the handle. So I was like, when I'm dead and gone, this is going to be so cool when you have this on your hip sitting at bear camp. And so that's the goal. I try to set that up.
Man, and I can guarantee you that your kids and your grandkids are going to love that because one of the talks that I give sometimes like wild game suppers is I share a knife that my granddad made out of scrap metal that at work. It was an old saw blade. He made 3 knives, one for each of his kids, and my dad gave me his. And it's actually in the case back there with the muzzle loader that my granddad built from a kit for me. And like it's one of those that it's been on my hip since my dad, gave it down to me.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, like, he made it out of a scrap piece of metal, and he made it. And so like for me, that's one of those things that it's you can't buy that. Like you can't have that,
It's your heritage. It's your heirloom. It's your heritage. It's your story of your bloodline.
Yeah. It's like my granddad has, he cut deer with that. My dad cut deer with that. I've cut deer with that. And one day my boy's going to cut deer with that. And it's one of those things that, and I know that right there is just, it, made me trigger that I want to do something like that with my dad and granddad. And so, my dad and my son, so that's pretty cool. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So that's the goal. That's what I'm, trying so hard to get the kids spooled up, and, and that's kind of my gift, hopefully back to my dad, is like that he gets to experience that, so that's the goal, and whatever that is, deer, bear, I don't care. That it's a big moose would be awesome, because I think my kids would think a big moose was cool, and I've never killed one. My dad, none of us killed one. So let's go do a moose.
Yeah. And like you said, but it's that experience. It's just who you're with that makes it really worthwhile.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Bert, man, if there's anything else that you would like to finish off with, just give us a few tips or anything like that. Please, just the floor is all yours.
No, I mean, I kind of said and done, but if you're not into the outdoors, you're missing it. If you're not into fitness, you're heavily hampering your life. We're only here for a certain amount of time. Let's make it as long as we can and make it as effective as we can. And that's just how I see it. And so do the hard work, you'll grow and you'll get to enjoy it.
Man, Bert, I appreciate you for everything you are and everything you're doing for the outdoors and for fitness and just for the world in general. The world is a better place. My kids have a better place to live because of people like you and what you're doing. And I am grateful for everything you do. And I want everybody out there to make sure you just follow Bert and check him out. And you're going to be better for just letting him almost mentor you, even if it's through social media. I think that's great.
And likewise. And I appreciate everything you're doing and giving a voice to people, and your mentorship is appreciated and known as well. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm trying to pass on what was passed to me and make the world a better place. So I think it's what we're all supposed to do.
What we're here for, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Hey, be humble, stay hungry, and get healthy.